Hello, people. How's it going? Well, um, anyway, I grew up on Abbott and Costello. I discovered Abbott and Costello probably in the late 70s. Used to watch it all the time. Oh, I think they're brilliant. They are the greatest comedy team ever. And they are. I've watched all their movies. I mean, this is the very first book I ever had of them. This is actually a copy I had to find. I lost the original one I had, but I'll get to this one. But this is the original book I went through when I first got into Abbott and Costello. Learning all about them. Well, their movies in it. This is more or less a look at all their movies, not just so much their lives. But anyway, but Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is probably my favorite movie of theirs. I mean, they met the Mummy, they met Doctor Jekyll and Mister Hyde, they met Frankenstein, Dracula the Wolfman, and I think the Invisible Man at the end of that one. I think I'm missing one, somebody. Anyway, but this book, this has only been a recent book that I found. Look, I think Costello was hysterical. He was a funny man, a very funny guy. He really was. This is written by his youngest daughter. Talks about his early life, from and with his family, his high school years, where once he was, by the way, very good at basketball. He was excellent at basketball. I believe that's him right there. And he was also a boxer, as you can tell by the thing. Uh, so I'm picking this thing up. But yeah, he was in boxing. He was a basketball player. Well, high school basketball player. He wasn't a very tall guy. I believe he was 5'5", and yet he still did basketball pretty well. He ran away from home to Hollywood. Charlie Chaplin was his favorite comedian, favorite actor. It talks about his early years, his early life, about his family relationships. Talks about him being into burlesque. Talks about him meeting up a little with Bud Abbott eventually, teaming up with Bud Abbott eventually. It talks about his career, but a lot of what this book talks about is his personal life. I mean, he was a very private guy when he was home. He was very quiet. He was the complete opposite of the people he would play in his movies. He was a very big family man. He was very generous with his time and his money with family and with people he discovered needed something or wanted help or some kind. He was raised a Catholic. He was very devoted father, very devoted son, very devoted mostly to his mother. He was very devoted to his mom. I mean, it is known that when he was watching the movie Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and he wasn't sure it was one of his better movies, he asked his mom what about it. He said, "That's probably the best thing you've done." I mean, he was Abbott and Costello will always be my favorite comedy team. I know this is more about Costello because I can't find a book on Abbott. I know Abbott did die in 1973, so I would have been 10. But it talks about his role in the different movies, how they got into the movies, how they did a burlesque, and how they did their radio program, how they did their TV program after they were done with movies. It talks about their first film, Night in the Tropics, which really isn't an Abbott and Costello film, but they're just in there sort of. They're not there a lot. It's a typical Hollywood love romance where they just sort of show up here and there to do one of their routines and stuff. I love their routines. I mean, Who's On First is the funniest routine ever made. I mean, it's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, by the way. A recording of that is actually in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Of Who's On First, What's On Second, I don't know who's on third. It is funny. It is. I probably still could. I used to be able to do the routine. I even tried to do the routine with other people, but it didn't work because I don't think they quite understood it. Him proving that 7 times 13 is 28 is hysterical. Well, I know how you get it. I figured it out. But they were funny. They were funny together. And she does deal with all the rumors that they didn't get along. Her and her Abbott didn't get along. They got along just fine. They were best of friends. They had their ups and downs, like any other people who are best of friends. But for the most part, they did and were best of friends. They liked each other. They enjoyed each other. They when Lou died, Costello. I mean, Costello. When Lou died, Abbott was heartbroken. He even tried to continue his act with somebody else, and it just didn't work because it wasn't Costello. He missed the guy. He was great as the funny man. Costello and Abbott was great as the straight man. I mean, they did a lot of movies together. I mean, they did Abbott Costello versus meets Frankenstein, which I think is their best movie. I mean, let's see. Oh, and Meet the Invisible Man or something. I don't even see it very well, but it is a very funny film. I mean, it is a very funny comedy film. Meeting the Mummy was a good movie. It was okay. Everything Has to Hold That Ghost is a good movie, despite the fact it's not a ghost. In the Navy is a good movie. Well, another one they made during the war, 1940s film. They made in the Army, which Buck Privates is in the Army. They did one in the Air Force, I believe. It wasn't called the Air Force. I think it's called In the Air or something. Let me see. Keep 'em Flying. If I remember correctly, yeah, Keep 'em Flying. Abbott and Costello, Keep 'em Flying is about them in the Air Force. They basically covered all the military branches: the Navy, the Air Force, which wasn't the Air Force yet, and the Army. Their films were funny. They weren't all. You have to really like Abbott and Costello to appreciate even the ones that aren't exactly their best work. I mean, Coming Around the Mountain is not one of their better movies. It has its moments. I mean, it's okay. Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man is very good. Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy is a little above average, but not a great film, but they do pretty well in it. And actually, if you watch it, you realize that Abbott is a little heavier now than Costello is, which is funny. But, I mean, the book, this book anyway, talks a lot about his family dynamics. His personal life with his family. I know I've said it, but he was devoted to his family. He really, really was. And when his son accidentally drowned in the pool, was a tragedy he never really recovered from. And I believe that's where the title, where the tragic part comes from. It took something out of him. When his young, less than a year-old son drowned somehow in the pool, it took something out of him. But the thing is, he kept going. He kept making movies. He was supposed to be born. He was supposed to be in a radio program or something the day that happened, and he said, "No, I got to continue." And I think the reason he did that was I think he realized if he did not continue working, I think the pain of it would have just been overwhelming, and he wouldn't be able to function. So it's understandable up to a point. Well, the book really does deal with his relationship with the studios, which he didn't always get along with the studios. He knew what he wanted. He knew he was a tough negotiator. The Costello you saw on the screen, the Costello you saw didn't see behind. The Costello you saw behind the camera was a lot different. I mean, he really knew what he wanted. He knew the films he wanted to do. He enjoyed making the movies. He wanted them to be good, but he knew what he wanted. He wasn't going to just he drove the studios crazy. Particularly, he drove a lot of people in the movies crazy because he would ad-lib so much. Abbott wouldn't ad-lib as much as Costello did. Abbott would let him ad-lib up to a point, and then he just sort of bring back Costello back to the script. When they did Abbott Costello meet Captain Kidd, Charles Lawton didn't know what to do with this because he literally did not understand their routine and how they did movies. It literally would confuse him because they would ignore cues and they would ignore the script a lot of times. And it's a very good movie, by the way. It is one of their better films. But as I said, I mean, I wish I had. I got introduced to Abbott. I don't know how I found Abbott and Costello, though. The funny thing is, I remember in the early, late 70s liking the movies, and I don't know where I discovered them from. But what I used to do as I would tape, I should say, I would auto tape the sound of the films so I could listen to them later during the week or just after they were over. And I almost had all the movies on tape. Almost all the movies on audio tape, so I could listen to them and everything. I love the movies, and it was it got me through a lot. Abbott Costello and the movies and everything just got me through a lot of stuff. Abbott doesn't have a biography out there. He had his own tragedies to deal with, and he had his own ghosts to deal with, and they did well together. They worked well together. They both had their demons to deal with, and they had their ups and downs to deal with, and they didn't always get along. Nobody does. But for the most part, they really did enjoy each other's company. And the reason I'm saying this is the 1978 movie about them is crap. It is an unpleasant film to watch. It has Harvey Korman as Abbott and Buddy Hackett as Costello, and the film is terrible. You would think that these two men, Abbott and Costello, hated each other, disliked each other. This movie was one long negative portrayal. And the book it was based on was a manager they had to fire for some reason. I don't remember what it is. But it was a angry, hateful book. It wasn't written about Abbott and Costello. It was written by a man who had a grudge against the two of them. But the movie was awful. And when I heard about the film being made, I was so excited, I was so interested, and so on and so forth. And when I watched it, I'm thinking, that's not Abbott and Costello. That is one long, unpleasant. Because if that movie were true, these two never would have made the movies they made. They never would have gotten as far as they did in Hollywood. But anyway, Abbott and Costello were very interesting. They were very, very different personalities. Abbott was Jewish. Costello was a Catholic. He was Italian. And the other one was, Anyway, his real name was Francis Costello. He changed his name, by the way. But I grew up on that. I grew up on their funniness, their humor, their wacky. I had wacky movies. Yeah, they weren't all good. Believe me, some of their movies were kind of. Abbott and Costello Go to Mars, I'm sorry, is not one of their better films. It is bad. It is very bad. But anyway, give me a haircut. He died tragically. Costello died tragically at 52, 3 days before his 53rd birthday. He was born on March 6th and died on March 3rd. But he died at 52. He died pretty young. That's pretty young. That's younger than I am right now. But anyway. But I mean, I remember. I'm looking for a reason. I used to love. Well, I was younger anyway. Tracing that picture of them. I liked tracing that picture of Abbott and Costello. They were funny. They were hysterical. They were in films, on radio. They had their own shows. And yeah, Night in the Tropics, 1940 was their first film. Though there are rumors that if you look close enough in some other films of the era, you can see Costello as a background character. You just see him sitting. He is there. It's hard to recognize him because a young Costello doesn't look like the Costello you're used to. But he was in Hollywood for a while. He was trying to break in. There's Abbott Costello in the Navy. That's a very good movie. That's a fun movie. Let's see. Any other decent pictures? Fuck Private Same. African Screams is another film. Not one of their better films, but it's Abbott and Costello. You kind of overlook that stuff because you want it to be good. You like them. Coming Around the Mountain is not good. Jack and the Beanstalk. They did. Well, I'm trying to go to Mall. Okay, Mr. Hyde. The film that he did by himself was The 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock. That was the film that he did by himself. He was trying to branch out. And I think they were they both were probably saying, maybe our movie careers are over. We got to do something else. But let's see. There they are in Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, of course. I love these films. I'm sorry, I do. Even the bad ones I will watch because it's them. Abbott Costello in the Foreign Legion, not too bad. It's not great, but it's not too bad. Abbott and Costello meet the killer Boris Karloff. Spoilers: Boris Karloff is not the killer. He's not. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. They're probably, in my mind, the best film they made. Let the Privates Come Home, another good film. The time of their lives, he plays a ghost. He plays a ghost with Marjorie Reynolds, whereas Abbott is playing an actual person. Costello plays a ghost during the American Revolution, is falsely executed, thrown in a well, and haunts the property with Marjorie, and torments poor Abbott because once it takes 100 years later, 200 years later, at least 100 years anyway. He hunts the ancestor of Abbott, who had him killed in the first place. It is a good film. It is funny. Him playing a ghost because he is Abbott. He is Costello. But yeah, I mean, they were a brilliant comedy team. I'm sorry, I have never understood why people think Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin are funny. I might be the only person I know or I've ever known who do not think they're funny. And I used to watch their films hoping they would be funny. I never found them funny. I also don't find the Three Stooges funny. I find Laurel and Hardy pretty good. The Marx Brothers pretty good. I know I'm missing one. I'm missing an obvious one. But Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, I'm sorry, I never found funny. I find Abbott and Costello very funny. I mean, even though in a lot of ways Abbott and Costello are playing the same characters in all their films, and so were Dean and Jerry, Abbott and Costello did it better. But anyway, see, did I show that picture? Yeah, I showed that picture. I mean, that's when Lou died. I mean, they were best of friends, and when Lou died, he literally just, I think he just lost it. I don't think he didn't enjoy it as much as he used to, I believe. Let's see. He was on Wagon Train, the TV show. I mean, he was trying to branch out. He was trying to be a good actor. He was a very funny man. Let's see if I can find him. And okay, that's the author as a kid. Chris as a kid. This is a very good book. If you want to know anything about Lou Costello, this is a very good book. It delves into his private life and to his public life. It paints a very well-rounded figure of him, a very well picture of him. He was not always perfect. He was not always a nice guy. He was normal. He was a human being. He had his ups and downs. He had his triumphs and tragedies. But he was funny. He got me through a lot of stuff with his movies. He got me, he still does. It's probably why I take it kind of personally when only one side of a story in a movie talks about him. Somehow he's Rasputin. Excuse me. Give me a well-rounded film. They've yet to do one. They're probably never going to, not in this day and age. But he was funny. The two of them were brilliant together. But anyway. But yeah, I like Abbott and Costello, as I keep saying. They got me through a lot. I like their movies. I love their movies. I really do wish we had comedy like that now, and we don't. But anyway. Did I show the cover of the book? Don't know if I showed the cover of this book. I think I did. Yeah, there we go. I think they were hysterical. I will always think they were hysterical. I mean, that's the Abbott and Costello I remember. I will always remember. They were brilliant together. They were hysterical together. They did some very funny movies, and they did some not so funny movies. And when I say that, I mean not well. Because some of them were pretty bad. But you could tell they were trying. But anyway. Well, if anyone's interested in movies or comedy teams of the past and other things, and they like to find out what those books are. I got this on Amazon. It was either Amazon or Script Books. But anyway, share, subscribe, like, comment. Thank you for watching. Behave yourselves, people, because you know I'm not going to. Later.